From the 17th to the 19th century, there existed a family in Japan tasked with the role of executioner. Known as the Yamada Asaemon family and often referred to as the Beheaders Asaemon, they were feared by the people. Their family business involved beheading criminals and testing swords on human bodies. Moreover, they amassed great wealth through a particular trade involving the bodies of criminals. In this episode, we will explore the historical sites associated with the Yamada Asaemon family and delve into their history. During the Edo period, from the 17th to the 19th century, the methods of execution in Japan differed from those of today. Among various methods, beheading was a common practice. Additionally, for particularly grave crimes, the procedure called gokumon involved displaying the decapitated head of the criminal, often seen as an added punishment. These executions, whether beheading at the execution grounds or displays of severed heads, attracted many spectators. At that time, the major execution sites in Japan were the Kozukappara execution grounds in Tokyo and the Suzugamori execution grounds, which were referred to as the two major execution sites. Originally, the role of the executioner conducting beheadings was not held by Yamada Asaemon, but was a duty of lower-ranking officials at a town magistrate's office. However, cleanly severing the neck, a complex structure decently packed with tough bones, demanded considerable swordsmanship skills from the executioners. Moreover, it was not simply about cutting the head. The executioner must ensure the severed head did not fly off. The head was to be left hanging by a strip of skin and fall by the weight to the criminal's knees, a specific method required. The role of the executioner, involving the cutting of heads and contact with human blood, was also seen as a job that entailed ritual impurity and was generally abhorred. Many officials were reluctantly carrying out executions when, at one point, the first Yamada Asaemon appeared a master swordsman. Asaemon voluntarily offered to take the role of executioner. Over time, he even started to provide payments to the officials. Since they continued to receive their usual allowances for carrying out executions, the officials happily allowed Yamada Asaemon to take over the duties. As he performed each execution, especially those of notorious criminals, Asaemon's reputation as a swordsman spread far and wide, eventually earning him the moniker the Beheader Asaemon. The title of Yamada Asaemon persisted through 9 generations, passed down not as a single person's name, but as a hereditary title for each family head. The continuity of this title over 9 generations, despite the high level of skill required, was possible because Asaemon trained many disciples. Beheading required precise cutting between the 3rd and 4th cervical vertebrae, a skill honed through relentless practice, including striking a sword through the gap between 2 stacked tatami mats. Although earlier referred to as a family, Yamada Asaemon only passed the title to his actual sons twice, usually choosing the most capable disciple as his successor. It is said that he preferred not to burden his own children with the harsh task of beheading, thus often appointing someone other than his own offspring. Impressively, records showed that these 9 generations executed a total of 2,400 criminals. To trace the path of Yamada Asaemon, I visited the largest execution site of the time, the Kozukappara execution grounds, located just about a 15-minute train ride from Tokyo Station at Minami Senju Station. Right in front of the station, the execution grounds were immediately noticeable. Entering the site, there was a temple located immediately to the right. This temple was originally built to memorialize those executed here and is an offshoot of the Senju Echo-wing, separated by a railway construction. Senju Echo-wing itself houses the graves of many great figures and notorious criminals who met their ends by execution. What particularly stands out at the site is Jizo statue, known as Kubikiri Jizo, standing 11.8 feet tall. This Jizo was erected in 1741 to mourn those executed at Kozukappara. Until around 1887, it was common to see the relatives of the executed praying at this Jizo. It is also depicted in historical illustrations of the Kozukappara execution grounds. The presence and impact of this execution site and the Jizo are undeniable. But what is truly surprising is the decision to lay railway tracks that cut through this historic site. In fact, every time there is a railway construction, a significant number of human bones are unearthed. In June 1960, during rail construction, a large number of bones were discovered emerging from this site, piled up in front of the Kubikiri Jizo. Further investigations during rail works between 2001 and 2002 revealed 252 skulls and a vast number of other human bones. These remains were buried directly in the soil without any coffins, packed so densely that there were 2 bodies per square meter. Approximately 1,000 bodies were buried annually at the Kozukappara execution grounds, and from its inception in 1651 to its abolition in 1873, over 200,000 criminals were executed here. As I descended the stairs past the Kubikiri Jizo, I was approached by a woman who appeared to be the wife of the temple priest. She shared insights about the site's history.
それはもうここじゃもう全部何もなくて、
ここコズカッパの
原っぱ。
原っぱです。お家なんか建ってないです。その当時は明治の初めまでやってましたから。
そうなんですね。明治の初めまで。
首切り。この辺に住んでる人は、匂いがすごいって言ったんで、犬が加えたりするんですって。首を。加えてっちゃうんですって。
これ樽があったこの辺でしたっけ？樽が。
いやね、あというかね、そういうのがありまして。
桶みたいな。
そうですね。で、首がこれ台があって、
はい。
飾ったっていうか、探した
ここですよね。この後ろ。
その当時はお墓もないですからね。原っぱでした。
お墓に入れないんですね。
入れない。
処刑された人は埋めない。もうこのまま。
そうです。だって首切って、胴体は樽の中入れて首はここに飾って。かわいそうじゃないですか。
かわいそうですね。
罪人とはいえ、罪人じゃない人もいたわけですからね。
In the past, there was a platform here near this monument where the severed heads were displayed. The beheadings were conducted around where the parking lot is now located at the entrance of the execution grounds. Right over there was a large barrel-like container where the bodies of the executed were placed. Leaving the execution site, I headed towards the bridge the priest's wife had told me about, known as Namidabashi. According to her, there was a bridge back then, now near the current traffic signal, where the condemned were brought to the execution grounds. The bridge where families tearfully bade farewell to the command, thus earned its name Namidabashi or Tears Bridge. Yamada Asaemon is strongly associated with the image of an executioner. Earlier, I mentioned that he paid officials to conduct executions. But why did he do that? It was not for his amusement. In fact, beheading was his side job. His true purpose lay elsewhere. He wanted to take possession of the bodies of the executed criminals. What did he do with these bodies? First, he used them for sword testing. It might be hard to believe today, but in those times in Japan, samurai would test the sharpness of their new swords on human bodies. Yamada Asaemon was recognized for his exceptional skill in these tests. He became the only officially sanctioned sword tester for the shogunate, conducting tests for shogun and high-ranking samurai. Additionally, Yamada Asaemon used the organs from these bodies to make highly prized pills. He sold them for what would be roughly equivalent to 100,000 yen today. These pills, larger than a clamshell, were renowned nationwide as a miracle cure for lung disease. This brought significant profits to the Yamada family. Though known as an executioner, this role was merely a sideline for Yamada Asaemon. They amassed a great fortune through two main businesses, sword testing and pharmaceuticals. It is said that in today's values, they earned billions of yen. Yamada Asaemon became the only officially sanctioned sword tester for the shogunate through such circumstances. In the early Edo period, there were many martial artists who specialized in sword testing. At the time, sword tests were often conducted alongside executions. Among these, Yamano Kanjuro performed over 6,000 live tests on prisoners during his lifetime. Another notable figure was Ukai Juroemon, a disciple of Kanjuro, who was officially appointed by the shogunate for sword testing. Recognized for his extraordinary skill, he was a daunting figure. And when he walked through the bustling streets of Asakusa with his daughter, people would step aside in fear. However, none of the sword testing experts lasted long due to illnesses or lack of successors. Yamada Asaemon was the only one who remained. Sword testing was conducted at execution grounds and samurai residences. The process began by constructing an earthen mound, which was a base made of hardened sand and soil to support the body. Officials, samurai, and disciples of Asaemon gathered around this mound. Under Asaemon's direction, two individuals would bring a body and place it on the mound to start testing. The tester would stand in front of the body, lift the sword over the shoulder, spread the legs, tense the abdomen, and with a secret breathing technique, would swing down to strike. This ritual, from securing a corpse to reporting on the blade's sharpness, was solemn and tense, conducted in the presence of shogunate officials. Yamada Asaemon also capitalized his sword testing experience to conduct sword appraisals, which brought significant income. For each sword he tested, he provided a rating divided into 4 ranks. From the highest, Saijo Owazamono, to Owazamono, Yoki Wazamono, and simply Wazamono. Notably, Wazamono refers to a sword that cuts well. The 5th Yamada Asaemon compiled a book, Kaihou Kenjaku, which lists rated swords and remains a famous reference for the value of swords to this day. Sword testing could involve evaluating how many bodies a single sword could cut through when stacked together, or how many separate bodies could be consecutively cut with one sword. Horrifyingly, the number of bodies cut during these tests was engraved on the sword's tang, along with the date of the test. Even today, these engravings can be found on the tangs of old swords. Many daimyo and samurai trusted their professional skills and sought their services for sword testing and appraisal. regarding them as the ultimate consultants on sword matters during their time. The Yamada family's pharmaceutical business was another source of substantial income. They manufactured medicines using organs like the liver, gallbladder, and brain of executed criminals. These were sold under the names Yamada Gun and Asaemon Gun. At that time, these medicines were believed to be effective against tuberculosis, attracting many buyers and generating immense profits. It might seem unbelievable today. While I will not delve into the graphic details of their pharmaceutical methods, it is known that the Yamada family owned a storehouse specifically for dyeing organs used in their medicines. Furthermore, the Yamada family also gifted their pills as tokens to officials at the Kozukappara execution grounds and Tenmacho prison. This was likely because they frequently practiced sword testing at these locations and wanted to ensure continued access to these sites for their activities. The Yamada family amassed wealth through sword testing, sword appraisal, and the pharmaceutical industry. Hearing this, one might imagine them as a fearsome clan. Yet, what were they truly like as people? Yamada Asaemon, who was involved in numerous executions, was consistently mindful of performing memorial services for the deceased. I visited Sho-un-ji Temple located in Ikebukuro, Tokyo. At this temple, there is a memorial tower called Motodorizuka, built by the 6th Yamada Asaemon. Walking through the entrance and heading to the left of the main hall, I found the Motodorizuka. Currently, the tower has only one base stone layer, but originally there was an additional foundation layer and the back side had a lid. It is said that with each execution, the top knot cut from the deceased was placed inside. Countless top knots of criminals are buried beneath the tower. Additionally, there is a monument called Asaemon no Hi, erected in 1938 by the grandchildren of the 7th Yamada Asaemon. Upon walking around to the back of the monument, the dates of death of the Yamada Asaemon lineage are engraved, and from the 3rd generation onwards, their death poems are also inscribed. There was a specific reason why Yamada Asaemon composed such poems. Often criminals would recite their final poems before being beheaded. However, Asaemon sometimes couldn't understand these poems, which troubled him as he felt it dishonored the condemned. This spurred the 3rd generation Yamada Asaemon to start studying haikai poetry, leading the family to gain formal qualifications in haikai, a tradition that continued through the generations. Next, I visited Shokoji Temple, located in Shinjuku, Tokyo. This temple, with a history of 460 years, houses the graves of the 6th and 7th Yamada Asaemon. Upon entering the temple and proceeding towards the back, the main hall is located. In front of the hall, there are 2 barrels intended for collecting rainwater, donated by the 6th Yamada Asaemon. To the right of the entrance, heading towards the burial area, I found the graves of the Yamada Asaemon. Buried here is the 7th Yamada Asaemon, Yoshitoshi, renowned for having beheaded notable figures such as Yoshida Sho-in and Hashimoto Sanai. In 1858, during the Ansei Purge led by Ii Naosuke, a senior official of the Tokugawa shogunate, many talented individuals who opposed the shogunate's policies were oppressed and purged. Among them was Yoshida Sho-in, a thinker and educator active in the late Edo period, known for mentoring influential figures like Takasugi Shinsaku and Ito Hirobumi, the first Prime Minister of Japan. I headed to the site of the Tenmacho prison in Nihonbashi, Chuo Ward, Tokyo. This location housed Japan's largest prison of the era, capable of detaining hundreds of people and also served as an execution ground. Over approximately 270 years, tens of thousands were imprisoned here. It is also the place where the 7th Yamada Asaemon executed Yoshida Sho-in. Today, the prison site has been converted into the park and a public facility managed by the ward. Upon entering the facility next to the park, I immediately encountered the detailed model that meticulously replicated the original prison layout, including the execution ground used by Yamada Asaemon. Between the facility and the park remains a well from the old prison, which visitors can look into from above. Across the park on the other side of the road is the site of the former execution ground. It appears the executions were carried out here. Now, a temple stands here to commemorate those who lost their lives. The Yamada family flourished from the 17th to the 19th century. However, as the Tokugawa shogunate fell and Japan moved towards modernization and internationalization, the era of the samurai came to an end. And so did the history of the Yamada family. In 1870, the government banned the practice of testing blades on the deceased and using human bodies for pharmaceuticals, cutting off major sources of income for the Yamada family. In 1882, the practice of beheading was abolished and replaced with hanging. In the same year, the 9th Yamada Asaemon retired, and the title the Beheaders Asaemon was laid to rest.